And this is the sun forecast from Tom Jacobs for Taurus 2021. I like to start these with the transition from the previous sign. So when the sun's in Aries, of course, there's that sense with the vernal equinox of new beginnings and springtime, or those associations of inspiration and passion and new beginnings, and kind of starting over. It's a kind of astrological new year. It's one kind, along with, in my opinion, the winter solstice, which is when the sun enters Capricorn. Um, so in Aries, we do. We feel strongly about things. We react. We take action. We begin things. We defend ourselves. We assert. We desire things, right? We assert ourselves. We say yes and no. And during the time of Aries, it can be a very busy time because we may not follow through on things, but we're active and we're doing things. And it can be that we have sometimes a short attention span, and we shouldn't judge ourselves for that. When the sun's in Aries, the giant flashlight in the sky is putting your attention on this way of being, right? This way of living. So things happen in Aries quickly. They begin, they end, they transition. They're broken into smaller bits, and they start and they stop. That's kind of par for the course in Aries. When a planet moves into Taurus, it's about slowing down to figure out what is essential, to figure out what tools are needed for survival. And it doesn't have to be physical, literal survival. But you think about a task or a project, how can I make this work well? Well, I have to organize things. I have to make sure everything's lined up and that the tools are in place and that I know what I'm doing, right, in order to use those tools. So the transition with Sun, the giant flashlight of the sky, from Aries to Taurus is in becoming aware of what you're doing and having, it is a, Taurus is an earth sign, having a kind of judgment, about if it's valuable. So it might be easy for us to think about Taurus as about money and possessions. We think of the second house and Venus and that side of Venus as about money and possessions. But think about, you know, in order to ensure the success or survival of something, you have to know what you're doing and have a plan. So I think of Taurus in many ways as about learning to align with your value system or what matters to you. Now, why would something matter to you? Well, there's a reason, and it has to do with the success or survival of a project or you. So it's kind of like, how are you going to organize your time? You're going to come up with maybe not rules, but intentions and processes. You're going to develop patterns or habits or protocols, right? Standard operating procedures. The way certain things get done. And then you might, you know, think about the image of the bull with Taurus, become obstinate or insistent or stubborn that that's the way it has to be. So, and the reason, but from the outside, it looks like unnecessary stubbornness or pettiness, or sometimes not thinking outside the box or not being open to new ideas. But from the inside of Taurian energy, you found a way that works, and you do it. You keep doing it. So, to stabilize from Aries to Taurus, to stabilize, to figure out what is necessary, to also trim things or pare down things. If you've been hearing, I make this sun forecast to be an audio only video on YouTube, but also give it to my subscribers. And my subscribers to my monthly service are hearing this every month now. This, what is Uranus and Taurus about? It's about freedom, Uranus, or innovation, individuation, elbow room, through a process of paring down what is not essential or trimming the fat, so to speak. So focusing on what's essential. And so my subscribers have heard that quite a lot over the last couple of years. So the focus with the sun here is to pare down things. Now again, Uranus has already been here. It had a retrograde period where in 2018 it went into Taurus and then retrograded back, and so it's we've had a taste of Uranus and Taurus for a while, but with the sun entering the sign, these things can become much more obvious. I'll talk about that as I talk about later in this recording when I talk about the sun conjuncting Uranus and activating that square to Saturn in Aquarius, and then a few days later perfecting that square to Saturn. I'll talk about that, but this basic idea I want you to have right now is stabilization, focus on what's important, and that may differ from person to person. Like one person's values naturally will differ from another person's values. What does this person prioritize? Now, you might not know why she does that, but she's got a reason. And it might look illogical to you, or again, obstinate or bullheaded or something like that, stubborn, but there's a reason. There's always a reason. And it comes through identifying what you could think of as best practice. Like I come up against this when I was writing these forecasts over the last couple of days, because whatever the astrology program on the computer, where the keyboard of which I like, but that computer no longer does video, so I had to get a backup computer that does video, but I don't like the keyboard. So I'm sitting here, but it wouldn't be a problem except the astrology software on the older computer, it won't. I can't change the window size. It's either minimized and invisible, or it's maximized and takes up the whole screen, so I can't also pull up a Word doc and type the forecast. So I have this whole setup when I do these forecasts, and I had to change it. And my sun in the second house, which does relate to this archetype, the Taurian archetype, last night I was just sitting here being so confounded because I was like, you know what? If this thing worked the way it was supposed to work, I could just have the system that I set up that I found works really well. And I was being obstinate. And it was petty and immature, and I was embarrassed when I realized what I was doing. So no, I just changed things around and made it work. And I've been making it work with shortcuts and workarounds for months. But part of me is like, I know what works because it's tried. How do you say that? It's tested. It's tried and tested. Like I have validated through testing that this is a quite efficient way, and this is the way that I choose to do it. So think about the Taurian thing, not just stabilizing, but really being aware of how things work, how you can set things up in order to make them be efficient or maximize your time and energy. Because again, it's about efficiency. It's not about doing things 3 times. Therefore, it's also about paying attention to what you're doing when you're doing it. It's not about multitasking. Next month we go from Taurus into Gemini, and I'll talk about that. But this is about focusing in order to create best practice, even if it doesn't make sense to somebody else. Okay, so when the sun goes from Aries, when it's in Aries, you might feel your attention pulled a bunch of different ways for that whole solar month. And of course, other transits in Aries too. We had, new moon in Aries, conjunct Eris, square Pluto. So we had a lot going on, right? Conjunct Venus. But then when it goes into Taurus, you have less attention to give to things. Partially because you're paring things down, or the natural inclination is to simplify. I haven't used that word yet, but it's a really important one. To simplify, to trim, to simplify, to pare down. But also because when you are doing something, you're more inclined to focus on what you're doing, so you have less time to like do 15 things and respond to 8 texts and answer 30 emails. So you just literally have less time because you are doling it out or portioning it out in more intentional ways. So give yourself a break if you're finding yourself, with so much on your plate from, the month of Aries that you're not quite sure how to manage everything. Do one thing at a time. Focus on what is essential. Give yourself a chance to be a work in progress, but this is part of the natural process. And sometimes people with strong Taurus energy, you might recognize this in them. They seem not to care about a lot of things. And in a way, or from one vantage point, it's true. Not because they're cold-hearted or shut down necessarily, but because they've chosen to focus on certain things. So this month, give yourself the space to focus on what is truly important and invest your time and energy, invest your attention and even resources, right? Money and possessions. Resources include time and attention and what you focus on. So give yourself a chance to invest in what does truly matter and stabilize a kind of foundation with those things. Okay, the sun enters Taurus Monday, April 19th. That's today. I'm recording that today. And Mercury entered just before. Um, Now, the conjunction to Eris in late Aries, about 24 Aries, is wrapping up, and the square to Pluto in late Capricorn is wrapping up. So there's a whole thing here starting on the 19th, and it was around I think 1:34 p.m. Pacific because I was watching it because I had a frazzled day, and I was like, I can't wait till Taurus happens, and I am sensitive to when planets change signs sometimes, especially the sun. So the sense of like calming down, right? Regrouping, stabilizing, getting grounded, coming off again the conjunction to Eris and the square to Pluto. There's a lot of tension, a lot of energy, and drama sometimes built in that kind of stuff. And now Mercury's also in Taurus, so you might have this sense of being able to slow down finally. Um, Now again, Mercury and Venus was already in Taurus, and now the Sun are in Taurus, so it's time to ease up on the pressure and really focus on what truly matters and what's important. So let me describe a bit the Scorpio full moon. And for those of you who are not subscribers who don't know, I do approximately 30-minute channeled meditations for each lunation, each new moon and full moon. And if you are a subscriber, that's included in the subscription. And if you're not a subscriber, you can get those one at a time or on a subscription basis through Patreon, where that's the only thing I do through Patreon. So you can check those out if you want. And they're channeled meditations to help you get grounded and working on the themes of the full moon. And anyway, so this Scorpio full moon, meaning the sun's in Taurus, moon's in Scorpio, is Monday, April 26th at 8:31 p.m. Pacific time, and it's at 7 degrees of Scorpio, and 6 minutes. So the moon, of course, is opposite Sun, Uranus, Venus, square Saturn in Aquarius, trine Mars in Cancer, sextile Vesta in Virgo. In this forecast, I don't cover everything about all the asteroids I use, even just the four main asteroid goddesses. But when they're aspecting lunations, I try to, and when there are certain patterns, I try to. So what's obvious is the Sun in Taurus. Now it's with Uranus and Venus and square Saturn. So there's a dialogue happening there about efficiency, about which rules matter, about if we can free ourselves from convention or from things as they've always been. The need is to individuate. The sun is with the Uranus Venus, so we want to use our time and energy in different ways. We might want some elbow room within certain relationships in order to think straight, or just have a breath of fresh air, or have a solitary experience just to have it, right? Just to change the rhythm, right? And get to know our thoughts, or get to know something about ourselves, or figure out a problem, or connect with nature. Taurus is also about a sensuous connection to nature, like feeling, with our senses, right? Um, so then so what's obvious is individuality, individuation, or even with Venus Uranus trying to upgrade what's going on in relationships. The moon in Scorpio brings this opportunity for balance. Like essentially, the way I look at full moons is there's an obvious thing happening, which is a sun configuration. And then this thing comes up, and part of a person says, wait a minute, I need to do this instead. And it is the opposite. So freedom, individuality, stabilizing, as sometimes being aloof. We could think of Uranus and Sun in Taurus as being a little aloof or indifferent to certain things. Quite practical but intellectual and not really engaged, right? With one's own thoughts, right? Moon in Scorpio needs either connection or validation from another person or deep processing of some emotional thing. And it could be some unconscious material that comes to the surface and says, by the way, I'm here, like any kind of scorpionic plutonian emotion, like jealousy, anger, grief, powerlessness, some kind of deep reactivity that we're not sure why we're reacting to it, because something got stirred in the unconscious, and then somehow we are responding, but we don't know why. So it could be a need for truth or depth or connection or deep validation, right? Or it could be the reality of a feeling coming up and you don't know what it is. It could be the need for an honest conversation with somebody who is stuck up in her or his head, or somebody who's finally, having their that elbow room to figure something out, but then something comes up and somebody needs something, or there's some kind of drama or an emergency or something like that. It could be that. And you could be the person who's in your head, you could be the person who needs something. Or you could be both at different moments during a day with different people. But the point is something real and deep and raw and maybe in a scorpionic plutonian way quite unattractive, some emotion or feeling comes up. So, what I would encourage you to do is to allow for this possibility and don't judge yourself, but get super grounded. So, if you feel a wave inside you moving, rumbling, if you feel fire threatening to gurgle up, and come out of your mouth in a verbal, angry way, or if you feel resentful about something, this day it might come up. It might need to be said or marked, right? So, anyway, be grounded so you're not throwing things and projecting things, and realize you're responsible for your feelings and your reactions. But yes, we do need each other to activate and trigger those things within us. So somebody, quote, makes you feel something, unquote, you can take responsibility for that and not blame that person. But you can acknowledge, yeah, this scenario, this thing you said, this thing we did, yeah, it triggered something. It activated something. So in the end, the Scorpio full moon is really about not connecting, but about reaching a deeper level of truth and responsibility within yourself. If you have access to, or if you go to get access to the channel meditation I'll do in the next few days for this, the Ascended Master Jehudi, also known as Hermes, Thoth, Saint Germain Merlin, that being will have a whole teaching wrapped up in the MP3, and it might include this. It might actually veer quite far away from it, but there's always an interesting teaching, a spiritual teaching that comes in with those meditations. Okay, so with the moon square the Saturn in Aquarius, there's a potential for the realization that, like the objective realization that, wait a minute, yeah, you're not responsible for what I'm feeling, but you did somehow contribute to, or you made it happen, or I made you seem to make you feel this. But yeah, I'm not responsible. I'm not to be blamed. There's also the need for objective, responsible, mature action with Saturn and Aquarius square this, and there could be someone, you or others, having intense reactions and not getting the response they want or need. As I said, it's really not about the other person validating you. It's really about you validating yourself, right? Well, you might witness in the world around you, or in your home, or in the workplace even, somebody having an intense reaction, and other people are like cold or seemingly indifferent, and it makes the person crazy. Makes the person be a lunatic right around the full moon. Just realize that could happen. Ground yourself. Be objective. Be compassionate. Listen, but don't take on others' grief, anger, jealousy, resentment, bitterness, whatever it is. Trine Mars in Cancer, it sets up emotional reactivity and defensiveness, but also the potential for that, but also the need to take action to do something proactive about self care. Mars in Cancer, you might want someone to protect you or to look out for you or defend you, but you really need to ground and be that protector and defender for yourself. Sextile, the moon sextile Vesta in Virgo. I think about Vesta as devotion and creating something sacred, but in this case, something feels super important. It's in Virgo, and there's an analytical awareness of something in your analytical self that can quite strongly focus the Scorpio moon. So if you are blaming somebody for what you've experienced or what you feel, you might be able to quite strongly focus your anger on that person, right? But if you're focused on, or if you're willing to see that you're responsible for your feelings, even if others activate them, then you can focus on an analytical, analysis-based solution, like thinking through it and working through it and using logic to work through it so you can understand where it comes from within yourself and withdraw projections of others. But somebody might be blaming somebody else for what they feel. And it can be one of those, I told you 14 times, please don't do that. Like the other person's aloof with the Sun Uranus energy and not paying attention to details. And it can be that anger. So anyway, let's work on grounding and not throwing our projections, but also not invalidating that we have strong reactions and strong feelings. So then, moving on, the Sun will conjunct Uranus and Taurus at 10 Taurus on Friday the 30th, April 30th. And that's also with the true black moon around 7 degrees of Taurus. And in this time, the Sun is highlighting the Saturn Uranus square. So I'm looking at, and my subscribers are getting this in detail, and you can subscribe to get this the in-depth forecasts every month. You can read about that on the subscription page at tdjacobs.com. But this, how can I free myself but also have structure? Oh, I need to upgrade structure. Well, how can I introduce new structure, Saturn and Aquarius, and not get too stuck, Uranus and Taurus? How can I be efficient, Uranus and Taurus, while also being productive? Like, how can I be independent and productive? So, all this kind of back and forth. And I've said, as long as I've been thinking about this square, which goes off and on until early 2023, I think January 2023, they're kind of dancing together. And we need to make choices and take steps forward, but sometimes that's an experimental step. So we also need to be willing to rethink things and do it over again, or learn from what looks like a miscalculation, but is actually just part of the experimental process. Because these two planets require, I believe, a kind of humility to become better and efficient when they have very different ways of doing things. Saturn and Uranus in fixed signs, no less, right? Square each other. So take a step. How do I know if it's the right step? Well, you're going to know 5 minutes in. You're going to know 20 seconds into doing it if it's the right thing to do. So anyway, have some humility. Be willing to step back. I think of it as two kind of things, archetypes. I talked about this in the Astrology Hub a panel, I don't know, some months ago, thinking about the current year, and I was talking about this a little bit as others were. And I was saying that for me, the archetypes kind of go back like any page in the tarot, the kind of like willing student, right? And other times I've thought about it, and I think about the temperance card, where you mix a little, you step back, see if it's working, try again, change a little of this, change a little of that. Find out as you go what are the best ways to do it. Because they're fixed signs, each of the planets wants to have its way. But they're square each other, so they're teaching each other better ways as they go. So anyway, the Sun is highlighting that during this part of the month. And with the true black moon in Taurus, when the Sun hits Uranus, Sun conjuncts Uranus, there's an element of needing to follow instinct, not only your intellect and your experience, but also what your body and your chemistry and your emotions are drawn to. So think about an instinctive inside thing you can't justify, and it wasn't really an idea you had, this new thing you might try, but you're just pulled to do it. True Black Moon Lilith can do that. And then Sun will exactly square Saturn at 13 degrees Monday, May 3rd. So, from the last few days of April to the first few days of May, this is activated. So you might see with more clarity what the problem is, what the holdup is, what the belief you have is that blocks you from progress, or if you're attached to being Uranus in this dialogue, or if you're attached to being Saturn in this dialogue. How can you become both and go back and forth effectively and give each their own time, because they each have something important to contribute to the dialogue. And Sun on these planets will show you that. Now, moving on to the Taurus new moon, Tuesday, May 11th. It's at 12 p.m. Pacific. It's like at 11:59:50 or 48 or something Pacific. This is at 21 Taurus in 17 minutes. So a new moon is always, as I said, with the full moon, we realize something, we feel something, we become aware of something. With a new moon, we don't. We have a sense of a need to be a certain way, and we can have intentions about, given the themes of the the symbolism of the planets involved and the signs and whatever, we can have intentions, but it's a new moon. We need to allow organically something to unfold, quite often from a very quiet place within us. So we don't know what we're doing, but we can have certain intentions. And then we find our bodies and our senses pulled in one direction or another. We have a realization that something feels right, or something feels true, or more right, or more correct than other things. Or you just find your body literally moving in a certain direction, and you realize, oh, look at that. Um, Whatever, I'm eating this. And you just find your body doing things, right? Or, oh, I didn't realize I was thirsty. I guess I just drank water. So we don't know with a new moon what's going to happen. Again, we could have intentions, but it's important to allow the things. So this is in Taurus. So can you give yourself like this new, can you intend to have a new relationship with intention and with time, with focus, with simplicity, or paring down? Can you, choose to take a new step, or plant a new seed, right? Begin a new pattern, or allow yourself to be efficient through paring down or being simplifying or simplistic. I know simplistic seems like a loaded word a little bit, but can you allow yourself, in other words, to pare down, to shed, to just drop what isn't working or what isn't efficient, what isn't necessary? Humans are creatures of habit, but this new moon is asking you to do that. Now, the true black moon Lilith is conjunct this new moon, a degree away. So it's quite strong in there. So that sense of my body's going to tell me what I need. My root chakra instinct is going to let me know if something's right for me or not. I often use instinct and that sense of that root chakra wisdom of the natural world, that's preloaded software in your energy field, in your consciousness. I always use that with Lilith. It can come into those human dynamics where Lilith can be involved, where we're existing within a structure or a system, or there are rules and we don't fit, or we can't follow the rules. Like we can't toe the line, or repeat what everybody's doing, or we feel like we don't fit in. That's also part of the Lilith instinct, where your emotions, your body, your biochemistry, like your endocrine system, will send signals, and you'll know if something is right for you or not right for you. And I'd say how to understand if it's right for you, there's an extended or ongoing sense of peacefulness. If it's wrong for you, some part of you will contract, or you'll resist, or like, let's say in the past this has happened when I've used moldavite, the program crystal that I offer, moldavite, too much. At a certain point, I won't realize that, but I'll realize I keep dropping it. That kind of thing, your body's telling you, no, this isn't right for me. And that's almost a kinesiology thing, right? Where I'm not intentionally asking my body to respond one way or the other, but the fact that I keep dropping it means, well, maybe it's not the right time for me to pick it up. Same thing with food, right? All the sensual things. Same thing with touch. Same thing with textures of fabrics and also foods and even touch. But all kinds of things your body will tell you if you are willing to listen. So this new moon is about cultivating a sense of inner stillness so you can listen when part of you speaks. That might be super hard for some people to let themselves cultivate an open space in their day or these several days, right, that you might gear up for this. Now, this lunation is. Oh, the other thing about Lilith, we don't want to be controlled. And so your body might resist the rules or certain control based patterns. Your body might even resist being on time for something that you don't want to do, like dropping the moldavite, something like that. Now, this is trine Pluto, and so you might get information from your unconscious. You might have a sense of clarity and strength, and it might really support you being able to get super grounded and clear in your body, out of your head, into your body, so you can hear your body and listen and be very methodical and practical. It's also sextile Neptune in Pisces, and that has to do with intuitive or non-logical information stimulating that sense of inner quiet. So you might cultivate the inner sense of quiet and then have, insight or images or colors, or you might hear your guides talking if you're inclined to do that. You might, get stimulated by different things or have a sense of, you know, your energy field responding as well as your instinct and your body and your emotions. And I kind of debated on whether to include this, but Saturn and Jupiter are each 8 degrees from squaring the new moon, so it would be a weak effect if they're included. You might be hearing other astrologers, include them in their analyses for this lunation. I'm just inclined to say they're super weak if they're active. 8 degrees for me is kind of the outside limit, but I will just say that if you feel it active, the new moon in Taurus, what is efficient, what is simple, how can I best be, focused and paring down things. If they are square, those two planets, you're realizing that some of your amazing ideas, maybe they're not essential. Maybe some of the new things you've been doing with these Aquarius planets, maybe it's not actually necessary today or this week. Okay. Um, so then the Sun, moving on, the Sun's exact trine to Pluto will be Monday, May 17th at 26 degrees toward the end of the solar month. And that's, um, like I said, the new moon is trine it, but then the Sun is actually exactly trining it later, about a week later. And there's that thing about efficiency and ability to perhaps uncover the reasons why things are the way they are. Earth signs, right? But the sun is a giant flashlight in the sky. So it's about practicality, but it's also about awareness with the sun involved. So you might understand why a pattern has been the way it is, why you do something the way you do it, or where this comes from or where that comes from. And toward the end of the solar month, Sun will be square Jupiter, which is then early Pisces. So, and that perfects during the first day of the Sun having, entering Gemini. But toward the end of the solar month of Taurus, the square will heat up a little bit. So the Sun in Taurus says, I need to focus and be efficient. Square Jupiter in Pisces, but I really want to open up and absorb energy and be, connected to everything, or let loose and let my imagination run wild. There may be some tension in there about, practical completion of task or showing up on time versus daydreaming and inspiration and creativity and mind wandering. So that's the end of this forecast. Thanks for your time and attention. And again, if you're not a subscriber, you can read all about the subscription service and all the monthly classes and the mini readings that occur several times a year and the lecture classes. And And there are also levels 1 and 2. Level 1 is all the forecasts and a bunch of perks, including the classes and stuff. And then level 2 is also a 15-minute optional guidance call where I channel your guides for you for a check-in every month. So you can read all about that at tdjacobs.com on the subscription page. And take care of yourself.